Greetings, Heavy Metal Truckers here. So as you may see, I kidnapped Frosty. So yeah, in this video, we are taking a album review. And in these kind of videos, we review the album. And
really, I would never have guessed.
I know, right? And I mean, these reviews, they might be simple or they might be in depth, but either way, it's what we think about it. So, what did you think, sir?
Which album?
Immolation.
Wonderful. As per usual, was first introduced to Immolation on this channel with this album. Yeah, I don't think you've ever talked about them, nor do I think I've ever heard of them or come across them randomly. So, yeah. Yeah, it would be this album that I was introduced to them. As I got into the album, I remember I got through the first two songs, put it down, I didn't pick it back up for like 3 days.
Just busy.
Nope, didn't want to.
I wonder why.
Oh, it was... I don't know. Maybe felt like old school Whitechapel. There's impending doom aspects. Maybe. It was just... I mean, not necessarily my bag at all. But, I mean, it was alright for what it was.
I did this in the truck all the time, just ignore me.
I mean, it was all right for what it was, but it just wasn't for me. With that being stated, I gave it a 2, only because like I probably would have given it a lot lower if it was just because it's something that I'm not a fan of. However, I gave it a 2 because I could tell that it was actually pretty cohesive, pretty music
for what it was
and everything. So I was like, all right, we're gonna bump it up enough just because, you know, I could tell they did everything the right way.
Gotcha. And for you, sir?
So when did I discover this band, Immolation? Well, the name sounds vaguely familiar, so I feel like I've heard it before, but I've not ever listened to anything from them. So this was a first for me when he said to add them like 6 weeks ago to put this album on the list. I looked up a little bit, said they're a death metal band. I was like, oh, hell. Anybody knows me, I'm not a death metal guy. Well, to me, and I'm sure somebody's going to butcher me for saying this. No, it's not. This is me, my ears. To me, death metal has always kind of sounded like black metal without the damn atmosphere.
I'll give you that.
Sir, if you're okay, I was about to say you might want to get that tighter because that adjusts the vertical.
But anywho, I tried to go into it with an open mind, and sadly, this album struggles with a lot of the same things a lot of the other death metal bands do, and that half the songs sounded the exact fucking same. To the point that it went, I think it was the first 2 songs. It went from the first song to the second song, and I didn't even realize the damn song changed because it sounded so fucking similar.
That's why I put it down after the first 2 songs.
I was sitting here thinking like, damn, this is a long song. Holy crap. And then I click on, I'm like, oh shit, this is the second song.
That's kind of what I suffered with whenever I got one of the recent Incantation albums, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's not just something that is special for this group, or it's an issue with
the genre.
Not just death metal, but the genre. Not just death metal, but metalcore has the same damn problem. So that was the first strike for me. And I would say that now, not every single song sounded the same. There were a couple that had enough variation where you could tell a difference. The biggest one for me that was noticeable was probably Attrition. That was probably the one song that I won't say enjoyed, but I didn't hate it. I didn't just care for it. Now, that being said, there were some cool things going on musically at times. Like, there's some really cool riffs going on, whatnot. But ultimately, it wasn't enough to save the album for me. Now, I can see why people would enjoy this, kind of like Cannibal Corpse, that sort of thing. I can see why people would enjoy it. Is it my thing? No, not at all. Is it something I would go back and listen to? No. But for people who are fans of death metal, you know, I'm sure they would enjoy this because it follows along the same pattern, which you expect a lot of them. The vocalist wasn't bad. He ain't the greatest I've heard, but he was far from bad. I would say 75% of what he said I could understand him. Yeah, so for me, I actually kind of agreed with Frosty, and I gave it a 2 out of 5. And that was largely because some of the riffs are pretty good. And like I said, for what it is, it's what you would expect.
Yeah. So I don't remember when I first heard of Immolation, but I knew I had heard of them before. And unfortunately, I suffer of continuously getting them confused with Immortal for just Emma, and then either it's going to be Erdl or Elation. So, which Immortal was a black metal group.
I know of Immortal, should I say.
So Immortal was the group that Abath was with before, to my recollection, that was the group he was with before he made his solo project. But
right.
I knew they were death metal, but I didn't know exactly like within what spectrum, because there are several spectrums of death metal. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't sure how my perspective was going to be going into this, since I have gotten out of death metal a little bit. Even though like I still do generally enjoy it, but I can be a little picky in it just because I've gotten more to the black metal aspect of extreme metal. And any kind of death metal I enjoy, it's like blackened death metal, or it's more like old school death metal. So like old school Behemoth, like the Evangelion era, Solskia Cultus, like those aspects of death metal I enjoy just because it has those darker elements to it, or more sinister aspects. So kind of went into this very intrigued, and the funny part was that whenever I was listening to this, I'm thinking to myself, damn, this actually, I'm kind of really loving the way that this sounds. And give me just a moment, because I gotta look this up really quick. You guys are gonna actually laugh, or you're gonna laugh about this. I'm thinking to myself, damn, this sounds nice and old school. I'm impressed that a group would come out with a sound like this. Like, it was, the riffs were nice and simple, and I was greatly enjoying it, and it was just straightforward. I'm like, wow, this is impressive. Until I realized I wasn't listening to the latest album on accident.
Which album were you listening to?
I was listening to an album from 91.
Oh, dear Lord.
And so I'm like, oh, well, that explains the very old school sound to it. Because I was like, man, this is nice. And then I'm like, oh. And so I put on Descent, and I'm like, oh, okay, there is the modern death metal aspect. Okay. But even then, listening to it, there was something about it just that intrigued me throughout the entire thing. And most people, whenever you ask them, like, what's the first thing that comes to your mind whenever you think about death metal, and depending on who you talk to, it's either going to be Cannibal Corpse, because household death metal name, or depending on how old you are.
That's why I mentioned. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
Or that's why I mentioned them, because I know everybody would know who the fuck they are.
Or depending on like how old you are, how much you are into the genre, death could come to mind, just because they were one of the biggest old school death metal groups. So this really intrigued me in such a way, and I couldn't really pinpoint it until it was a second or third listen I gave through to this. Overall, again, this actually kind of suffered the same thing that Incantation's album suffered through, where Incantation was way worse, in that I had no idea whenever what track was playing, and I'm like, wow, this is a very long track, and I'm looking down and it's on the 4th track, and I'm like, what the fuck? Okay then. And so, to the point where I keep on meaning to give that
glad I'm not the only one.
Yeah. Well, I keep on meaning to give that Incantation album to Redbeard, which I might be doing so soon. But so despite that, like it had a lot more variation than the Incantation album did, and so I was listening to it, and like I could actually hear very nicely what was being played, and the vocals were very intriguing to me because they weren't typical modern death metal vocals, and so I'm just so baffled. And by the 3rd listen through, it finally dawned on me. This album, or Immolation, at least.
You're deaf? No, I'm just kidding.
That's quite possible. But this album of Immolation actually reminds me a lot of Morbid Angel in the way that they approach death metal, in that has a bit more of a doomier aspect, a bit more of a sludgier aspect, in that it's just a straightforward rhythm and groove to it, rather than just blasting out as much as they can, similar to like what Cannibal Corpse would do. And even the vocals are very cavernous in the atmosphere of them, so that's again not something that I hear much anymore. So with that, again, that was something that kind of intrigued me about it, just because it kind of brought back like the era of Morbid Angel, like where the slime lives, and I was actually greatly enjoying it, because I'm like, I have not heard death metal like this in a long time, at least for me. But then again, I don't actively go out seeking death metal necessarily, just because it's kind of gotten to the point of, let's just be heavy and fast as possible and just obliterate everything in our path, which for what it is, it's doing exactly that. It's the genre says it is. It's death metal. You're not going to be singing it. As the bassist for Cannibal Corpse once said, like, we're not singing and playing stuff about fairies and unicorns, like this is death metal. So like this so yeah, like I was just very intrigued about the whole thing. And so again, I was quite enjoying the sludgier aspects, the doomier aspects of it, the more cavernous style vocals. There was a great deal of atmosphere within this. And could I necessarily understand what was being said? Not a little bit, but I was more into what was going on instrumentally, atmospherically, just the style of the vocal that was being done. I've kind of gotten more to the point that that's mostly what I focus on these days. I'm not anybody. Wow, that's gonna be an unpopular opinion, probably get me shot down by many people, but there's not many lyricists out there that really grab me anymore. It's not that difficult to be able to write down some good lyrics, or even some lyrics, and then just throw them out there and be able to be enjoyed by millions of people. It's just not that difficult anymore. So I've kind of desensitized to lyrics and what they do. So it's unfortunately not a focus of mine anymore, as much as it used to be. I mean, whenever a group does have good lyrics, then yeah, I can catch it out and wow, that's really awesome. But it just doesn't happen like that anymore for me. But trying to stray back on from that tangent, I really enjoyed this album for what it was. And if I was to get back into death metal the way I'm into black metal, this would probably be the gateway album for me, because again, I was really enjoying it. So for that, I would probably, for its abilities and what it had going on, I'd have to give it a 4, because I did enjoy it, and I love the atmosphere that was behind it, the way instrumentally it was done. The mixing was phenomenal, and their approach I greatly enjoyed. So for that aspect, I do give it a 4, because even whenever I was going to pick him up, I was actually listening to it to like be able to get a closer eye on this review. So yeah, that's what our perspective of Immolation's Descent was. Hope you guys did enjoy it. If you have any other thoughts and aspects to it, go ahead and fight below in the comments. And until next time, guys, keep rolling heavy. Whether musically, lyrically, or literally, keep rolling heavy.